make you laugh, shows that make you think, music that moves you. It could only be one place. Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
Welcome to The Actor's Choice, where the actors and actresses have a chance to talk about themselves and their careers. Join us now for the next hour as we explore the marvelous industry of acting by actors and actresses from today's exciting show business world. And now, direct from Hollywood, here's your host, Ron Brewington.
Hi everybody, I'm Ron Brewington and welcome to The Actor's Choice. My guest today is indeed a well-known and renowned entertainment publicist here in Tinseltown. Over the years, I've had the extreme pleasure of knowing this lady and seeing and hearing about the tremendous accomplishments that she has made in her chosen field. When you speak her name, people know exactly who you're talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my extreme pleasure and honor to welcome a legend, Joanne Geffen. Thank you so much for coming.
Legends from Adam's
No, not really. I know some young legends. 5 years on, they're legends already in their mind. Anyway, you know, it's great to have you here today, but you have quite a resume. If you sit down and read it, you've made great strides in this business. When you first came in, it was a different business. What made you get interested in publicity and public relations?
I actually fell into it. I don't know if you remember Corbett Monica, the
heard the
comedian.
name. Mm-hmm.
He was the Ed McMahon to Joey Bishop, if you will. And I met his son, and it's a long story. Anyway, the bottom line is I went to him to fund a magazine I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "You don't want to do that. Why don't you do my PR?" And I said, "What's that?" And he told me, and I said, "Sure, I'll try it." I mean, I was a kid. I was like 20, I think. Mm-hmm. You know, I'd been out of college for a couple of years. And so I said, "Give me your old clippings." He fired I don't know what was wrong with the man. He fired his publicist and hired me, for virtually nothing. And he just gave me his clips, and I started calling people.
Now, you're originally from New York City.
I am.
I have an expression for that town, if you don't mind. The city's so nice, they named it twice. The city's so pretty, they called it New York City.
Oh.
I was born and raised there myself. That's quite a town. It
is.
Now, when you made a transition in 1978, you came here to Los Angeles. What was that like, making that transition from New York to LA?
I didn't want to move here initially, and then I was out here and got stranded during a snowstorm in New York and rainstorm here.
Gotcha.
And I started really liking the lifestyle. You know, I was never a big New York fan, and I had my son was very little at the time, mm-hmm. and it was difficult to raise a kid alone in New York. And so it was like, okay, I'll do it. And moved out here, knowing no one, and my office was at Motown, because I opened it for the Commodores.
Okay.
And so it was just fun. I liked the lifestyle almost immediately.
And a great location right down Sunset Boulevard.
Yeah, sure.
Couldn't ask for anything more.
Sure,
Right.
And the people there were great. They were very welcoming and
mm-hmm.
good to me.
Now, you worked with the Commodores.
Mm-hmm.
You've known them for a while, had you not?
Since their first audition in life. Was for Suzanne de Pass at Lloyd Price's Club, the Crawdaddy. Because Lloyd was a client of mine and knew Benny Ashburn, their long time manager. And so he invited me down to the club when they were auditioning for Suzanne and hired me on the spot, and the rest is kind of history. It's been a long time.
Now these guys, they came from a little place down south called Tuskegee, Alabama.
Yeah, they did.
Yes, they grew up.
Great town.
Grew up together.
They didn't all grow up there. They all went to college together.
Okay.
Mylan grew up in Mississippi, who's unfortunately passed.
Yes.
Richie was from there. William King was from Birmingham. So they were all in the vicinity, but they met at college and started this band called the Jays that ultimately became the Commodores.
Well, whatever you did, lady, you made stars out of those guys.
Well, they had a lot to do with it.
Of course. We ain't talking about them, we're talking about you. You really did a lot of work for them.
Oh, yeah.
You made them, their music was just, Marvelous. I was recently, I won't say recently, about 2 years ago, I was down in Tuskegee, and Lionel came down, and he sat down to the piano, and the first song he played was Easy, and I screamed because I love that song. I love that song.
I love that song too. It's one of my favorites.
Easy like Sunday morning.
I know.
Love it, love it, love
Yeah.
it. What was, okay, you went on tour with them. What else did you do with them?
Oh, I mean, the big challenge with them, especially back in the day, I mean, it was a very different world on every level. But music was very stratified then. And so your R&B department was totally autonomous from your pop department or your rock department or your classical department. And so one of the things that I prided myself on was helping them make the transition, or at least bridge the gap, if you will, between R&B music and pop music, so that they weren't just categorized in one world.
Yes.
And so that was, and the way I did that actually was interesting, because the first time they were in a white, if you will, teen publication, I think it was 16 magazine. I think it was, fans used to send in all these caricatures and photos. So I took a caricature photo that wasn't colored in, obviously, so you didn't know what color they were. It was a black and white sketch. And I sent that in for the Commodores, and they weren't well known enough yet so that people really knew what they looked like, who they were, if they were African American, if they were white, if they were Asian. No one knew what they were. So I had their picture in 16 magazine as, the new kind of hit act. And that's how I got it in there.
Interesting. But you got a chance to really know them.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that is something that is, because there were so many other groups out there. Motown was cranking out a whole lot of guys at that time. Did you work with any other Motown artists?
Oh, yeah. Over the years, almost all of them. Smokey.
Smoke.
I did some merchandising for Rick James. Temptations I represented for several years. Gosh, I don't know. A lot.
A lot. How about Marvin Gaye?
I knew Marvin. I didn't represent him. I didn't work with him, but I had the pleasure of knowing him.
Yes.
And hanging out at the studio, and yeah, he was a character, but he was brilliant.
Yes. I've never had the pleasure of meeting him personally.
Oh.
His brother Frankie, his sisters, I knew them, but I never met him.
Yeah,
he's quite
he was a piece of work, but he
work.
was a genius.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was.
Genius.
When you were there at Motown, there was a guy, name of a person that knew you very well while you were there, Bob Jones.
Yes, I knew Bob.
You called him Robert Jones.
Yeah, I knew Bob. There were two Bob Jones, actually. One was my accountant after. He was in finance.
Okay.
But you're talking about Bob Jones, the PR maven.
PR man, yeah.
Yeah, and he ultimately started working for Michael, and Michael Jackson. And Michael was really good to him, when he took sick. He took very good care of him. So I credit Michael for that kind of loyalty.
We miss Bob Jones. He was a unique man.
He was unique.
Yes,
we
he
had
was.
our ups and downs.
Who didn't?
Many downs, but he was, at the end of the day, he was a very good guy.
I have to say that he opened up a lot of doors for a lot of minority reporters and journalists.
Oh, yes.
We got a chance to talk to the big stars when before that didn't happen.
That's right.
He did that for me, and I thanked him very, very much for that.
Yeah, no, he was a good guy.
Yes. I remember when Marvin died, he helped a friend of mine, Kitty Sears, who worked for Marvin, put on the funeral. It was a great funeral, one of the best I've ever been to. So what did you do after you left Motown?
Well, I never really worked for Motown. My office was there, so I had other clients that I had developed. Once I moved to LA, because I had to reestablish myself in business here. So I just did my own thing, and I continued to work with the Commodores. I continued to work with them. I mean, I still do some things with them. I mean, I'm friends with all of them, even the ones who aren't in the Commodores anymore. Independently, we're like family. You have your little bickering and you have your whatever, but we're family.
Yes. Anyone who knows you knows that you have a personality that won't wait a minute. You have a style about you that folks, either they love you or they don't love you. Plain and simple. They love you, and most of the time they love you. They
That's
love
so
what.
sweet.
It's true.
You're embarrassing me.
It's true. It's very true.
Thank
Indeed. Can you talk about some of your early clients when you first got started?
Yeah, I mean, I ranged, because Corbett was a comedian, I had people like Jackie Mason, and then, and Lloyd, of course, and then Lloyd introduced me to Tamika Jones, who introduced me to Monty Rock, so I've always been very fortunate, and my clients do introduce me to other people, and that's how my business developed.
I see.
And then I got into television, and was representing several television stars especially during the Dynasty, and during that whole era, I represented Pamela Bellwood from Dynasty, and Annalicia from Falcon Crest, and all those shows. Audrey Landers from Dallas, so I was very involved with all that. And one of my favorite and most interesting clients was Barbara Walters.
Baba Wawa.
And and I represented her specials.
Yes.
So I was very entrenched in the world of interviews and excerpts from her interviews and that kind of thing. And again, because of the nature of media, there were only hardcore journalists then. There were columnists, and there were gossip by hardcore. I simply mean traditional media versus internet and social media.
Yes.
And so it was a very different methodology and very different outlets that would be most impactful. So it was just a different business. Now it's all internet and social media, and obviously television still is top of the charts, I think, for the most exposure, in the shortest amount of time.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a different world.
Different world out there now. Yeah, whole different world, they say.
Yeah.
Joanne, now, back when you started, how much of a challenge was it for you? Because you had Rogers and Cowan and all these other big entertainment PR firms in this town and whatnot. What was it like back then?
I've never really put myself in competition with anybody. I have a much more personal approach, I think, because I'm small. I've never had more than a few people working for me, and don't want to. When I got bigger, I shut it down. It was just too much. I didn't have the personal relationships with my clients, and it's hard for me to sell something I don't know and don't rely on, that I don't believe in.
Gotcha.
So, I never considered myself in competition, and I always actually thought that I was very fortunate not to have worked for a PR company because I was more creative and I thought outside the box. No one told me what I couldn't do. If someone tells you these are the rules and this is the way you do it, that's all you do.
Right.
This way, if you don't know, I remember before there were really VCRs at home, I remember taking a videotape from Midnight Special. We got sued, we stopped it, but of the Commodores, and having Record Bar and Pizza stores down in the South, rent video players, hang them from their ceiling, I swear to you, and play this videotape of the Commodores. But it was unheard of, and I never thought about it. It was just, like, why hasn't this been done?
Yes.
So if you don't know better, you'll try anything.
Okay. What is the need for a publicist?
A publicist should be key in branding. So in other words, even though you're talking about a personality, be it a singer or an actor or a director or a producer or an author or whatever, it's still a brand. You're still creating an image for that individual or company or product or whatever it may be. And it's your responsibility to be true to it, to help that person find out what that is. Because you don't want to create, I don't believe that you should create a persona that isn't real.
Right.
A lot of people do, but I just think that honesty is always the best policy. And so, you try to find the core of that person and then try to build around it. And that way, they're never going to be embarrassed because they're never going to mess up. They're never going to say anything that isn't true because they don't have to. Right. They have to be proud of who they are, and they have to be confident in who they are, and they have to be able to communicate that consistently in all their messaging.
Gotcha. This includes Hollywood bad boys, bad girls, too.
Well, I mean, that's a different kind of image making. I certainly wouldn't encourage anyone to create that image, but I do a lot of crisis management, which I actually find really important and worthwhile, and I learn every time. I mean, I've done things that have nothing to do with entertainment, and then I'm doing a lot in the world of entertainment, and you do it all, very confidentially under a lawyer's auspices. So you have the same attorney-client privilege, confidentiality, and but you feel like you're making a difference not only in people's lives but in the world at large. I mean, you can, through messaging and media, you can be very impactful.
When you say crisis management, does that mean your client may say drunk driving or something like that?
Yeah, it could be anything from that. Some of the things going on in Hollywood today. It can be, I've done things, cases that have to do with ICE. I did a murder for hire that had nothing to do with entertainment. But attorneys are brilliant at what they do. It doesn't mean they know how to deal with the media.
Gotcha.
And so they and their clients have to learn when not to speak, when to speak, and what to say when they do speak. And sometimes there are blatantly wrong things told to clients to say that can have desperate and horrible repercussions. And so it's my job to make sure that anything they say is going to be in good standing in perpetuity, because anything you say now is on the internet for life. And then some.
Yes. I know sometimes, as a media man myself, I know sometimes some media people have a tendency to ask crazy questions, like your mother just died. How do you feel? I mean, come on.
Yeah, really.
Don't ask those kind of questions.
Yeah, I'm jubilant. I mean, yeah, it's crazy.
It is crazy.
It's crazy. But I mean, it's up to the, ultimately, at the end of the day, it's up to the interviewee to say, please.
Yes.
That's kind of a foolish question.
Yes.
Or to say, I really don't care to answer that.
Exactly.
Or in the case of very public figures, they don't always have to answer.
No comment.
And never lie, because it will come bite you. So you're better off just saying, I have no comment at this time. I won't dignify that with an answer. I mean, there are ways to deal with it properly, politely, without putting one foot in the grave.
Gotcha.
Because that's what will ultimately happen if you're not really careful.
Exactly. Because really, it's a team for the celebrity.
Yeah,
I mean,
for everybody.
For everybody. You got an agent, you got a manager, you got an attorney, you got a CPA, associates. Oh no, yeah. You got a publicist, assistants, and you got a publicist.
Yeah, stylist, makeup artist.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah, there's a whole crew. There's a whole entourage that goes along.
Oh my gosh. What are some other services that publicists provide for the client? You put together press kits.
It ranges.
For them.
Well, yeah. I mean, now everything's electronic, but yes, I mean, you create a biography, which hopefully represents them. It shouldn't just be a resume. It should really, every bio, and I mean, that's what I took particular care in when I wrote the book too, but every bio should reflect that person's personality and character. So they should never you should never be able to read 3 bios from the same company and know the same person wrote them. It should always be very personalized and customized so that it reflects that personality.
And never lie.
I don't believe in lying. No.
Somebody's going to catch you. We talked about that recently in the meeting. Yeah.
No. It's always going to come back and haunt you.
Yes. Do you look for clients or do they look for you?
I've been very fortunate, and I rarely do. I mean, if I'm in a place where people are talking about it, and I'll say, oh, that's what I do, Yeah, I'm not going to say, no, go to somebody else. But no, I've been very lucky, and I'm recommended a lot.
Yes.
So I'm blessed.
A publicist has to know how to write. I before E except after C. They've got to know how to write.
And speak.
Yes.
I mean, you have to have, and contrary to a lot of the young people, with all due respect, because I love them. I have 2 girls I adore in my office.
Understand.
They're fabulous, and they're not like this. But a lot of the younger people think they can send out an email blast and that's it. Done.
Right.
Over. We got the communication out there, and that's not true. Follow-up is vital, and conversation is vital. Until you know somebody, what's going to make them open your email when they have 600 others waiting for them? Not much.
Right.
Catchy headlines, great, but it's also great to build relationships. And they last forever if they're good and sincere ones. I mean, you know, I'm not saying that all the journalists are my close social friends. That's a lie. But certainly, if I enjoy them, yeah, we'll go have a bite and get to know each other on a personal level so that you have a relationship. But if I don't, I can't do that. I'm just not good at it.
Yes.
You know, that's just me.
Yes.
But, you know, you still deal with everybody and you have to personalize stuff. You can't just send out a blast and expect the same information interpreted the same way by 1,000 people you send it to. That's just ignorant. So you have to figure out when you call them, when you resend it, you have to customize it from their perspective because you always want it to be of interest to them. And even if the conversation may be of interest, the point of view may be different. So you have to always be sensitive to that person's, you know, point of view, to that person's needs in terms of what's their story really like, what's the show really like. I mean, you know, I wouldn't send you a window washer to be on this show, you know? So you've got to use common sense and be able to have a conversation with someone to frankly convince them that this would be a good addition to their roster or to their show or to their column or whatever it may be.
Here's a problem that I see sometimes is that there are a lot, because of the technology, everybody's got, I'm a president of a club, I'm this, I'm that, I'm a news person, and an event comes up, and you want to get the best or people in there to do the job. How do you handle that situation?
You mean when I invite them to
Yes,
an
when you
event?
invite them, because they'll say, well,
Or
you know,
don't?
or don't, or don't.
And they show up
They get
anyway?
very mad, show up, get mad.
Well, I mean, a lot of it, again, relationships, credentials.
Yes.
You know, there are a lot of freelance people, and some of them are extraordinarily credible, and you get to know who they are after a while.
Yes.
Some are not, but they may indeed have an assignment. So you have to ask questions, and you can't ever be rude to anybody, ever, ever, ever. There's no need. It's not a good pattern in life. It's certainly not a good pattern in business. And I've found that some of the relationships I had, I won't say who because I don't want to embarrass him, but he's now the head of multiple networks.
Okay.
He's a really big deal in our business. He started as an intern at CNN. And when I used to go there, we were both young, you know, and I was always nice. I would occasionally bring him like a coffee or something, you know. But I was just always pleasant, just because he was a really sweet guy, and he was always very pleasant. And, you know, because interns or assistants are often treated like garbage, he was very appreciative. And when I saw him years later and ran into him when he was already a big shot, he said, you know, I'll never forget how nice you were to me when I was starting out. And so people do remember, but they also remember when you're horrible to them.
Yes.
So, you know, I tell this to clients starting out, you know, always remember these are people who you don't want to wave on your way down, you know?
Exactly.
And they'll always support you if you treat them right.
Indeed. We used to do a lot of junkets over at the Four Seasons Hotel in Beverly Hills. And some of the people who move your cars in and out, that's their job.
Yeah.
But if you were very nice to them, when there was a long line, they'd go get your car instead of those people, before those people go in line.
Yeah.
Just because you said, please, thank you, and excuse me.
There's
Doesn't
no
hurt.
reason not to.
Exactly.
You know, we're all human.
We sure are. Did you have ever done any teaching of public relations?
I've not taught. I've spoken I spoke at UCLA Extension.
Good school.
I spoke at Columbia Film School. So I've spoken at several of them.
Okay.
I don't know that you can teach public relations.
Well, they got people to
I
teach.
mean, you can teach. You can
Yes.
teach writing. You can teach basics. But at the end of the day, if you want to be versatile at all, you have to just have an open mind, be communicative, and be sensitive to what will fulfill people's needs. Because you are, you're the seller. They're the buyer.
Right.
Media. And so you're selling to media, and you have to keep that in mind. They don't owe you anything.
No, they don't.
And if you treat them that way, it's the first way not to have them take your calls.
John, what advice would you give to someone who's interested in getting into this business?
I always think it's a good idea to intern, because then you get a real sense of it, and particularly in different areas. I mean, there are different agencies with different areas of expertise. There are some that just deal with food and restaurants. There are others that deal exclusively with entertainment. We're pretty diversified and handle authors and products and companies and music and, all sorts of stuff. So it's a little more eclectic, and you get more of a taste of different parts of PR. There are some that are just political.
Yes.
So you've got to follow your interest also.
Yes. But entertainment, what I like about being a publicist in this area is that you do great things like work long hours.
Yeah, you do.
Attend
But a lot of it's fun.
Yes, fun. A lot of fun.
Can be.
Yes, can be. Attend entertainment industry events such as movie premieres and award shows and junkets and things like that.
And they get old. But
Yes.
but with all due respect, I've been very fortunate, and I think most of us have been. We've been very lucky, and it of course depends on your clients too.
Yes.
And if they treat you with respect, as they should, and you treat them with respect, then it's all going to be a good time. If it's, if you develop a relationship where, oh my God, they're on the phone again, and I can't deal with anyone like that, I don't want to live like that. I never did, and I never will, and that's part of why I want to keep it smaller.
Got you.
Got
you.
But you have to really care.
Right.
You have to care about your clients. I mean, I keep clients a really long time because they become friends.
Who's the longest client you ever had? Kept?
Commodores.
Commodores. Wow.
Well, since 1971 or 70. No, 70, I think, or 69, something. Yeah.
Now, there are personal publicists, there are publicists who work for the studios, all these different, they're all doing the same thing, but it's a teamwork thing that they're trying to do for the client.
Essentially, they all may have a slightly different point of view. A personal publicist has a broader range. In other words, they're trying to create an image for this individual that can carry over to music, to theater, to television, to merchandise, to whatever, commercials, where a music publicist at a record company is clearly interested in the record. They have no interest in the rest of that person's career. Television, same thing. They care about that one show that they're going to be doing for them. So that's what they're promoting. They're not going to have a broader, whole person sense of establishing an image for them.
Okay. What's a typical day like for you?
There's really no typical day. I mean,
throw that
there
one
really
in there.
isn't. I look at my email before I get out of bed.
Okay.
My phone usually starts ringing fairly early.
Okay.
And today I came here first, but most days I'm in my office pretty early. And, you go out, we accompany our clients everywhere. So
Yes.
either I'll go or one of the other girls in the office. If they work with a particular client, we'll go with them.
Yes.
But we always accompany our clients. We never leave anything to chance. And so, we're out with clients, we're on the phones, we're email.
Email.
It's merciless.
Today was
really.
Today was a good day. Golden Globe nominations came out today.
Yes, they did. And I'm sorry to say I have not seen most of the movies, but I will if I ever find time.
Indeed, indeed. One of the things that you talk about creating an image, there's a lot of persons, some of the clients, let me back up and say this. You had Barbara Walters. You've had Nancy Cartwright. You've had Robin Gibb. God bless him. Smokey Robinson,
Long time.
a.k.a. Smoke. David Cassidy, teen idol and singer. He was a special one, wasn't he?
Yeah, well, we were very good friends, and I was with him 20 years. And, and I knew his ex-wife long before that, because she's a songwriter as well. And she wrote with some of the Commodores back in the early days in New York, when I was still in New York. So I met him through her. And we've worked together, we worked together ever since. And I actually stopped working with him about 2 years ago, about a year ago.
Yeah.
And because he just wasn't going to work anymore. And then this, so
Yes.
sad.
Sad. Yeah. You wear multiple hats, don't you?
I've been known to wear a beanie that spins, yeah.
What's that like?
You just have to be versatile. You have to fulfill whatever needs come up. So, if it's something I don't know, obviously I'll reach out and find someone who does. But, I try and help on a lot of levels, and sometimes the talent doesn't have a manager, so they don't have anyone to give them broader guidance. And so I can help give them advice. I can help them network to a great degree. I did the Commodore's merchant licensing, so I know that world. So I can be helpful in other arenas.
It's good for clients to have clients and come to you and get that advice, because some don't know it's a business. It's show business.
Yeah. Well, that's the part you have to teach.
Yes.
That, and you also can't just trust the people speaking loudest and last.
True.
Because so many people feed celebrities egos just to be on their good side, and you're not doing them any good. You're not doing them justice. No. My feeling's always been, if you're asking me, I'm going to tell you the truth. You don't have to do it, but that's what you're paying me for. So I'm going to tell you what I really think, not just what I think you want to hear. And if that's not okay, don't ask me. Really, because that's what I feel my responsibility is. They don't have to listen, but, I feel obligated to tell them what I believe the truth is.
Indeed. Let's go back a ways. You wrote a book called The Story Behind the Song. This book right here.
Yep, I did.
It was a part of a Chicken Soup for the Soul series, and there's a story behind how you got this book together. Can you please tell us that story?
Oh, it was an accident, actually, like most of my life. And I was at a meeting about PR in Las Vegas with the Hilton Hotels, actually. And a friend of mine had introduced me, and she also had I don't even remember. Oh, yeah, Jack was it Jack? One of them was there. Mark, I think. Mark Victor Hansen was there. And the guy who had one of the people who bought the company from them at that time, a guy by the name of Bob Jacobs. And so I was hearing about all their titles and I was shocked, because I thought it was one book. I mean, I was really naive. Chicken Soup for the Soul. But they've got every subject known to man. And when they started going through them, it was like, wait a minute. And there was nothing with music. So when we were all having lunch, and I happened to be sitting next to Bob, and I said, have you ever thought about doing a book on music, on songs, the stories behind the songs? He said, oh my God, I'd love to do that. Really? He said, can you do that? I said, sure. So he said, done. And essentially, I got on the plane to come home, wrote a list of people I wanted in it. We did a deal within a week, and it was done. So, 101 songs. All their books have 101 stories. And there's everyone in it, from John Legend to Kanye West to Paul Anka to Christina Aguilera and Richie Sambora and Commodores, of course, Smokey, of course. Lamont Dozier, of course, another dear friend and ex-client.
Yes,
and so it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
When can a person get that book at?
I don't know. Sadly, there are so few brick and mortar stores now. I imagine you can get it in stores anywhere, or online.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the title again is Chicken Soup for the Soul, the story behind the song.
Yeah. They just made it an ebook like about a year ago or 2 years ago, so it's available that way too.
Okay.
And it has all the lyrics in it and pictures of the artists, and it's cool.
Okay. Have to ask you this one.
Okay.
Thoughts about the current sexual harassment situations?
Oh God. I'm kind of appalled at our legal system. I don't dispute, that when there are multiple accusations and admissions, that people shouldn't be held accountable for their actions on one way or another, whether it's legally or not. However, we live allegedly in a democratic society.
So they say.
And I have a real issue with not having due process. And I think that so many people are being taken down. I mean, they've put their lives into work for years and years and years, and then it's taken away in a day because one person got angry about something and made accusations that may be true, they may not be true. But until these people have their day, I think it's absurd that they don't have the opportunity to accomplish what they're good at, and to just be ostracized without any real proof or due diligence. And I just think it's gotten out of control. I know I'm a woman. People will probably think I'm a horrible person. But you know what? Back in the day, it was no big deal. I mean, I'm not saying it's right. Please understand, everyone. I'm not, it's disgusting, whatever. But we also have to distinguish between flirtation and rape.
Right.
And we've blurred that line dramatically.
Yes.
And I just think it's unconscionable. And I think everyone's entitled to legal counsel. Everyone's entitled to some kind of consultation on how to deal with the media. I think some of it's been very mishandled. I think some of it's been handled very well. But I really think we all have to be diligent, not just about the sexual charges, about any charges, about anything. We just have to respect people enough to give them a shot, and I don't know. I just would like our legal process to be what it should. I mean, for God's sakes, we elected a man into the highest office in the land who publicly was announcing his behavior. And then we're ready to persecute and prosecute some little guy who has one person came out and said he did this, she did this, he did that to this one or that one. I just think it's crazy. It's out of control. I think that everyone has their right to accuse. Everyone has their right to be accused.
Yes.
But everyone also has their right to defend themselves effectively. And I just think it's out of control.
Okay. Do you ever ask yourself, why do you do what you like to do?
More and more. I'm doing more and more crisis management.
Okay.
Even though I like the other stuff, obviously, too. But I feel like I can help make a difference somehow. I mean, the rest is great. You're helping people one-on-one. But if you can make policy changes, if you can impact people's opinions, if you can really use the media for good, whether it's for charity, I do a lot of work with charities and for charities. So if it's for a charity to help them because they're suffering in this terrible economy, which people are starting to say is a great economy, which I don't know, hasn't trickled down yet. But, I think that, you have to use whatever it is you have. I mean, I would like to align a lot of celebrities and media to help gun control. I told you earlier, my nephew's soon-to-be would have been brother-in-law, was breaking up a fight between strangers in Florida and got shot and killed. I mean, come on. Where are these people getting their guns? why do we not have a national database that tells us if someone's buying guns in 3 neighboring states over a month's period of time to raise a red flag? I just don't get it. These are simple changes in law that can be accomplished. But the only way it'll be done, sadly, we've become such sensationalistic media that if you don't have celebrities or high-profile people as spokespeople, no one will listen.
Exactly.
So my feeling is that part of what I can do is turn all of my relationships to good. And if I could do that on one issue that's meaningful, I'm happy.
Thank you. Thank you. You travel. You've witnessed history, have you not?
I have.
Can you tell us about that, please?
Yeah, well, I've traveled a lot on tour, and by doing so, I've met some amazing people. I mean, in our country, I've met politicians from both sides of the aisle, if you will, and call some of them friends, you know, at the highest level. Overseas, I worked with South Africa very closely for many years. I represented the SABC. And before that, it all started when the Commodores were going to be touring South Africa. And it was just months before apartheid fell, and I had an inside line on exactly when negotiations started and when they were going to end apartheid. And I'd spoken to a lot of people in high places, if you will, over there, and felt confident and felt like the Commodores could have made a major positive contribution by Amandla, which is peace and brotherhood, and press conferences, you know, demeaning apartheid. Anyway, we wound up going over there after my getting death threats and all sorts of stuff.
Death threats.
Yeah, it was pretty nasty for a while. And then we went over. We did not go into South Africa proper. We went to surrounding companies in southern Africa. We went to Namibia and Lesotho and I forget what else, Botswana. And it was interesting, and then through my relationships there, I was able to work with various organizations and corporations and the networks. And I booked all the Miss Worlds over there, brought all the celebrities over for all the Miss Worlds that took place in Botswana, which is Sun City, after apartheid fell. And brought a lot of talent over, and essentially became the go-to person because they were 9 years behind in media. They got no TV shows, no films, nothing, because they'd been cut off intellectually from the world. So when they started to revamp and catch up and get all those films and television series they hadn't seen in there, they needed someone to help facilitate the promotion for them. So I would help to bring the stars over or to get them on radio interviews and, you know, get them promotional materials from the studios. So that was really fun. I did that for a few years. And that was great. I loved it. And I love South Africa. So, and the people. And I found the people there to be much more tolerant than we are.
Yes.
Because everything there is right up front.
Yeah.
You go into a little area, they don't like you, you'll see a swastika on their finger. You know, you don't want to talk to me, and that's okay. I will stay away from you. Here, you don't have that luxury. You don't know when someone's going to come behind you, you know, and get you. So I'm of that New York mentality. I want to know what you're thinking, you know? I don't like the clandestine stuff.
How do you want to be remembered?
Oh my goodness, that's a Barbara Walters question. As a great friend, and that goes for family as well, because you can pick your friends, you can't pick your family. So as a great friend and someone who just cares about people and tries to give back.
We got time for a couple more questions.
Okay.
One would be, how do you compare the artists of today with the artists of when you first got in business?
I don't think the artists are as different as the business.
Okay.
The only difference is that it happens or doesn't happen more quickly. because you don't have the machine behind you like you did, the record company machine, the money machine behind you,
Yes.
where they'd really invest in an artist. Look, the Commodores didn't really hit big till their second, third album, you know, but Motown believed in them.
Yes.
Their management believed in them. And they really worked hard to make them successful. And today, it's kind of throw it against the wall and see what sticks, whether it's a major label, an independent label, or just online. You know, Imagine Dragons made it online.
Yes, they did.
You know, I mean, you don't hear about that happening every day, but it can happen.
It can happen, yes.
You know, there are still record companies nurturing artists. You've got television, the American Idols of the world, that, I mean, just manufactures stars.
Right.
You know, and so there are opportunities that did not exist. By the same token, there isn't the kind of foreseeable machine. You know, and whether it was legal or illegal back in the day, the way they promoted radio and all of that, it got done. And the really good people at what they did never took money if they didn't believe in a project. You know, so they'd have to believe in it, and they would fight for it because they believed in it. And so you had a really good shot. Today you've got, you know, radio's owned by what, 3, 4
Companies, major
huge companies. And so their programming is done on a wide scale. It's not up to the jock or the program director at individual stations to say, wow, that could be a breakout hit, and play it. You know, so those kinds of opportunities are really lost. And I think we're missing a lot. You know, unless you have the time to sit on YouTube all day long. And I personally don't. So I know I'm missing a lot, and it's a shame.
Gotcha. Got any new clients lately?
I have a new young group called Undecided Future.
Here's a chance for a plug.
Undecided Future, really. Jason Derulo selected them on Ryan Seacrest's new show on YouTube. And so they're, I think, going to be like the next One Direction. They're really talented guys.
Good.
I love, love, love Amy Holland. She's back.
Okay.
She had a Grammy nomination years ago and then raised kids. And she and Michael McDonald, her husband, were just out touring together. So there's lots of good stuff going on, you know, and I'm still enjoying it.
I see that. You're right in the middle of it.
Well,
It's nice to be in the middle of things, isn't it?
I guess.
Yeah. You get
I
a chance to
guess.
stir that pot up of life because there's so much out there. So
Yeah.
many people need to know what's going on in the world today. I try to get students where I teach at to watch television, look at the news.
Have to,
Have to.
even if you don't like it.
I look at CNN all the time. I wake up with
I
CNN.
know.
Great
I even
place.
force myself to watch Fox sometimes. Just, well, you have
You
to
do that?
know. You have to know.
Yeah,
You can't make a decision if you don't know both sides of an argument.
This is true. This is true.
You know,
Very
so
true.
you can't corner yourself into a wall.
Well, Joan, I want to thank you very, very much for taking the time to come down here today. Before you go, I got something for you.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. Where is that?
Oh.
For the lady. For the lady.
You're so sweet.
For the lady.
Aw,
My pleasure.
my old pal. Oh, this is beautiful. Thank you. I will treasure
Thank you so
these.
much. We want to thank our special guest, Joanne Geffen, and thanks to you. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.